Hello, welcome to No Veto Video. I'm Katherine, one of your hosts.
And I'm Carson, your other host. And this week, we're bringing you Cirque du Freak, The Vampire's Assistant, from 2009, directed by Paul Weitz, and starring Chris Masoglia, Josh Hutcherson, John C. Reilly, Salma Hayek, Ken Watanabe, Orlando Jones, and Willem Dafoe.
Cirque du Freak, The Vampire's Assistant, tells the story of the first two novels in that series. It's a YA adaptation. And in it, a kid who has a very normal life gets brought into the world of a long-running sideshow, only to discover that many of the monsters of the world are real.
I picked this because I'd seen it, probably 6-7 years ago, and I found it enjoyable. While it is a young adult, or maybe young teen to young adult, somewhere in that range, movie, it doesn't feel like it's dumbed down like some of the movies in the genre seem to be. It was still entertaining to me, and I found out after picking it that you had wanted to see it also.
I really had. It was one of those things. I'm starting to be in the tank for John C. Reilly, so like whenever there's something that he's in, I really do give it a hard look and see if it's something that maybe I can get on board with, and often I can. The whole cast itself, two that we didn't mention, Kristen Schaal and Jane Krakowski, very, very funny women, and so knowing that you had all of this going on, certainly by the time it really popped up on our radars, and came back again, we had seen The Hunger Games with Josh Hutcherson, and seen his thing. This is clearly he's still coming into his craft. He's not there yet, the way that he is.
Yeah.
Certainly by the end of that cycle of movies, but it's a lot of fun. It's a stupid fun movie, and what do you want? It's a fun movie. Willem Dafoe has a silly mustache and a bad makeup job, and intentionally bad makeup job. And It's just a lot of fun.
There were a lot of intentionally over the top makeup jobs. Ken Watanabe also, I think, may have been a little over the top.
I want to talk about his character a little bit, because he plays a character that is not explicitly that could have been played by anybody.
Oh yeah.
And I think that's really a great. He plays so often the Japanese whatever, and he's certainly turned in his fair share of samurai and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But just a fun role for him, when he first gets introduced. That is about as comic as I've ever seen him used in a film, and it's just perfect.
Yeah,
it really is, and lots of other people. At one point, Orlando Jones has a great interaction with the townspeople to kind of reveal the nasty underbelly of their concern, which is just great. There were a lot of great moments here. Kristen Schaal, as a sort of toothy lady, has a great crisis of confidence, which she's very good at, and Jane Krakowski is just kind of deliciously weird. And if you've seen this film, all the puns for that particular lesson, it's just a lot. It's just a fun movie, and people seem to be having fun making it. I actually kind of regret that they didn't make any more.
Yeah.
In this sequence,
I found myself thinking the same thing after the first viewing and the second viewing. I think one of the things that it points out is everyone is a freak, but they're still normal. No matter who you are a freak in that you are unique in some way. But as the one character says, you're still normal. We all have something in common.
Yeah. See, I would have taken it the other way, which is to say, like, only those of us who claim to be living normal existences are the weirdos.
That's, yeah.
I want to say that...
Same sentiment from the opposite perspective.
Yeah, like, I think about, like, a film like Edward Scissorhands, and how that... He's a weirdo, sure. But the very, like, pastel, normal suburbia... Like, even the way that Burton films that enclave is very creepy. Now, at one point you talked about the nice suburban homes wallpaper.
Oh, yeah.
And, like, I think that was a nod in that same direction, which is to say, this place is creepily artificial. Like, it's just... Like, nothing's this right. At one point, Mom comes in and readjusts a floral arrangement so that it better matches the magazine she's holding. And, yeah, there's just a level of artificiality, which is like, that's the real weird stuff there.
Well, and there was a lot going on in the movie in the world outside of the circus that was all about control. And you see a lot of that in his household.
Yeah, freedom and control, authority, and just how are you going to choose for yourself?
The school as well. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it seemed the way they were portraying everything in this kid's life as being domineering and controlling. It was like they were presenting the entire world that way, not just for him.
I mean, maybe there was certainly this, like, very, like, the world of the other students and, like, how you have to maintain the relationships between them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there was definitely a sense of, like, whoa, really? Like, and that just the slightest amount of strangeness could throw you off the path.
Yeah.
And I think that's not untrue. I think there's a level of realness to that makes us recognize it when it comes up in the movie, but...
And then, when we are introduced to Steve, he's the polar opposite.
Is he, though?
In a way. I mean,
see, that's my, like, all of his hopes and his dreams and desires. I mean, it's a strangely written character, and I feel bad for Hutcherson because he does what he can with it, but at the one hand, he seems to really envy the normality, the normalcy of Darren's life. Mm-hmm. And on the other hand, he also wants to, like, jump off the deep end and go into this whole other place.
I was talking, though, not from what he wants internally, but he is a force of chaos in this world.
But only because I think he's clawing at trying to get in, and the gates of exclusivity are closed against him. So when he is showing up as a force of chaos, it's, you know, as an adult, and I look at this kid, and I'm like, well, he seems to be crying out for attention. He seems to be crying out for, you know, guidance, and he wants to be included at this family's table, and there's no room for him in it. There's no room for him in anyone's life, and so he's pushed out, and that causes him to act out a bit. And especially, I mean, the vehemence with which he reacts at being denied a thing he wants. Not so much because he's been denied it, but because it was given to somebody else. Mm-hmm. There's a part of me that sees that same kind of desperateness to be included that I think was driving that character. Yeah.
It's odd, though, because in some ways he could be included in things, but he actively works against being included.
Well, self-sabotage is a well-known thing, you know. But it's like, ugh, teenager. Like, he had a bad case of adolescence.
I viewed him as not wanting to be included, but wanting to be in control. For instance, later in the movie, he says, "But these people told me I have a destiny and I'm going to be a leader." So I took what he was doing as trying to tear down the establishment so that he could gain power.
Maybe. Probably, if we read further in those books, we might see that kind of tension, and it may be that both are in operation.
And it's possible, not having read the books, that this may be a divergence from those stories anyway.
Hard to say. Hard to say. What did you like about this movie? What are some other things you liked about this movie?
There were a number of things. I thought it was terribly funny, but in a more sedate way than the Little Hours that we reviewed last time. This was a much less like absurdist, slapsticky romp through the countryside, and more of a, I don't want to say dry humor because it certainly wasn't at times, but it was a much more subdued level of humor.
I would give you dry. There were certainly dry moments in it. And yeah, I think some of the CG work was really fun.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, like, obviously some of the characters had some pretty CG-y things happening to them. And, even whole characters that were CG that felt like or maybe they were puppets.
Yeah.
I don't know. Or some combination. Anyway, but that definitely felt like they belonged in that world and they had sort of shape and weight and purpose. I don't know. It was a fun film, and I have very little to pick on it. I didn't care for some of the costuming work.
Yeah.
Or the cosmetics, like some of the makeup work. But for vast majorities of the rest of the film, I enjoyed the costuming and the makeup work quite well. So there were just a few choices that didn't work for me.
I liked that all the characters at the carnival felt unique. It's not like they had 3 or 4 main characters and everyone else kind of was basically the same, which is easy to do in a movie like this, especially when you're not focusing on more than a few characters most of the time.
Well, and even characters we didn't meet that were just in the background.
Yeah, all felt like they had not only their own physical appearance, but their own personalities, their own wants and desires.
Well, and the set dressings really help with that, because when you're walking around like the winter camp of this carnival or this circus, that you have the this guy lives in a bus and this guy lives in an Airstream trailer and this person has sort of a teepee of fun glass mirror kind, and you've got all sorts of different places where people live, and that is really reflective of the variety and the diversity of that moment. And honestly, I think if you think about it, that's the only place you get diversity in this movie.
Yeah.
That the other places in this film are pretty white bread.
That's true. There's definitely a homogeneity in the school. Everyone acts exactly the same in some of the key scenes. Oh, that too. And I think that's a stark contrast. You're right.
And it's no wonder to me then that becomes home and that becomes something that's precious and needs to be preserved. Mm-hmm. So and why at the end when that does become home, I don't think that's giving too much away. I think it's signaled pretty early on.
Yeah.
But that seems to be a really well earned moment.
The sets were really nice too. That theater really looks like, and I don't know, maybe it was filmed in one.
I think it was.
But
I didn't catch it in the end credits, but yeah, I think it was set in one of those old movie house, opera house kind of places.
It certainly felt like it. It was very realistic, whether or not it had actually been a theater or not.
I kind of hope it wasn't, given what they did to it, but yeah.
Yeah, the destruction could have been on a soundstage or something. It may not have been on a...
Let's hope.
Yeah.
Let's hope.
But a lot of the other settings, I mean, it's easy to do a school if you're just doing a hallway in a classroom. So I'm not going to give them a lot of credit for that. It was an accurate portrayal, but the house, as you said, felt... It was a really nice house, but it kind of felt cold. I mean, there was clearly love in that household, but...
See, for me, it was stultifyingly warm.
Yeah.
Like, overstuffed, over floraled, over, just over everything.
When he goes back halfway through the movie, it just, like with no one in it, that house just felt dead in a way that many houses don't. I think it was the 70s wallpaper.
I don't think it was not 70s wallpaper. Don't look to Carson for your interior decorating help.
All right. The car was interesting that the antagonists drove.
How so?
There were a lot of lights on the front, for one. But just the interior, I don't know, it had like a reverse TARDIS effect. It feels like it should have been larger on the inside than it was. It felt kind of cramped, and I think that's what they were going for. That everyone who was invited into the car felt confined.
Yeah, maybe. As I think about, so what does it mean that the car that they chose to film had so many lights on the front, that it was so shiny and black, that it had this weird, like, purple lighting effect underneath or in the back? One of those two places. And then inside, that you had this sort of, like, squished togetherness. I think the squished togetherness was also to highlight I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for? The bodiliness of the antagonist, and his form is part of what is horrible about him. And so I think they're definitely playing with our perception of, like, too close. But I also, there's not a whole lot of vehicles in this film. We don't see a lot of cars, or the family, like, the kids are on bikes, the family doesn't go by car places. You see this one, like, menacing car more than anything else. And so it becomes, so cars are like the stand-in for bad guy or bad things happening in this film. And it really has sort of this look of a weapon about it almost.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no. Those are good choices made there.
You mentioned there's not many vehicles. I think that may be the only one. Maybe another one.
I mean, we see others. There's roadways, like there's cars.
Yeah.
At one point he gets picked up by there's a hitchhiking scene.
Oh, yeah, that's right. But I was thinking while watching the movie, and this is one of the reasons for this thought, this could have been really set any time period. There wasn't a lot to give it away except for some of the cars. But, I mean, you could remodel the house or whatever, just show a nondescript house. And it could have been set when our parents were that age, when we were that age.
Well, I mean, there is a bit with a cell phone. So
that's true. Although that really wasn't a vital...
No, you could have rewritten that part.
Yeah. So, in that regard, it makes the movie more likely to stand the test of time than it would have if there were a lot of things that grounded it.
Well, and I think we're always going to need a movie that says what matters are the choices that you make. I think that it comes up in Harry Potter. It comes up in, that we're going to keep needing to tell teenagers that ultimately at the end of the day, you have the choice to be kind. You have the choice to be inclusive. You have the choice to be, to follow the voice of your own heart. I think we're always going to need those stories. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, this is certainly fun. I think it's going to suffer for the test of time because it's not a complete story.
Yeah.
It leaves off pretty much right at a chapter break, basically what it feels like, and you're like, that's not the end. Like, that's an end, but it's not the end.
Yeah.
And since there isn't a film version of the end, yeah.
That's not to say someone couldn't make the next in the list of books later with a different cast.
Hollywood types who watch No Veto Video, we would very much like for you guys to get on that.
Yeah.
All right.
Another thing that, well, I'll hold that off. That may be your pick. So.
Okay. So those are our thoughts. That is our review. Come and find us at novitovideo.com once Carson updates the site. Leave comments down below. We will read them wherever you leave them, and we'll get back to you and continue the conversation that way. And
now comes the time on our show where we give you our override picks. an override is, keeping with the theme of Veto, a movie we think either would go along with this, if you like this, watch it, or in the case of movie reviews where we find a movie just unwatchable, a movie you should watch instead of this. I think it'll be the former this time, given how we've been talking about it. What would you recommend?
So I'm going to recommend probably a pretty obvious choice and probably a foundational document for the writers of this piece, but Something Wicked This Way Comes. The Ray Bradbury adaptation. There's a lot of things that are similar. Boy and his best friend, weird relationship with a menacing, at first seeming circus. Perhaps it stays menacing, perhaps not. I don't think that's available anywhere but maybe your local library, but Something Wicked This Way Comes. I recommend it.
I didn't even think of that. You're right. That's a really good recommendation. There's a lot of similarities.
Thank you very much.
I was going to suggest My Best Friend's a Vampire from the late 80s, mid 80s.
Mm-hmm. It's very good. It's got one of those casts before they were casts.
Yeah.
You're going to enjoy that.
It has some of the same elements. The relationship between the friends, though, stays better than in this movie. Not to say that the character in Cirque du Freak doesn't have friends throughout the movie. That just...
It's okay. He's done trying to not spoil the thing he almost spoiled.
What I held back from saying earlier, because I thought you may use it for your suggestion, was the Goosebumps movie.
Oh.
I saw some similarities in terms of, while it was a young adult movie, or maybe teen movie, it still...
That's what young adult means. Young adult
Sorry, I mean
teens.
early teen, not...
Okay.
Sorry.
It doesn't mean college students.
No, I know.
Okay.
But I don't think of 12-year-olds as being young adult for the purpose of...
For the purpose of literature, they are.
All right. Then young adult. For a young adult movie, it also felt enjoyable to watch as an adult. It didn't feel like it was overly simplified or just went for the cheap jokes most of the time. I mean, there were some of that, but no more than Airplane.
I found the Goosebumps movie to be, Jack Black notwithstanding, a rather unfortunate film. So I'm not recommending that one. And I would not have made that my choice.
Okay.
Something Wicked This Way Comes.
My Best Friend's a Vampire.
My Best Friend's a Vampire. Check those out. And so next time on No Veto Video, we're going to go way back for a full spoiler conversation of Singing in the Rain, which is available to rent on Amazon Prime, but you can find it maybe in other places, and you can almost certainly find it in your public library. Hopefully a lot of you have seen it. Carson's never seen it all the way through, so we're gonna rectify that.
And we've got a format announcement change again.
Once again. So, the interspersing episodes of random topical conversations, we're gonna let that go, at least for now. Hopefully you enjoyed the 2 that we did. But we're gonna keep doing movie reviews on the schedule that we'd already set up, so every other week. Come back and check in on us. In fact, I think I might have said, every other week come back and check in on us. Of course, if you hit subscribe, you'll always have the best and most up-to-date information about what we're doing. Mm-hmm. The world's just gotten a little crazy for us, so we're going to step back a little bit and focus on that and just making sure that we have good and meaningful conversations. Still, let us know what you think. If you've got movies that you think that we need to see, go on and let us know about that as well. We'll see. They may show up as somebody's pick. So, thank you for sticking with us. Thank you for sticking with us as we figure out what it is that we want to do. Mm-hmm. And we'll keep bringing conversations about movies. So come back and check in with us in a couple of weeks for Singing in the Rain.
Until next time, goodbye.
Bye.